Welcome back to the Sportsbook Draft, where FanDuel's pick is in.
With the first pick in the 2025 Sportsbook Draft, FanDuel selects the Kentucky Derby.
Brilliant pick, as FanDuel becomes the first sportsbook app where you can bet the Derby.
Just a savvy move by a savvy franchise. New customers get a no-sweat first bet on the Kentucky Derby up to $500.
It's like they know each other.
What do you think Rob's saying to him right now?
Probably something about oats.
Hi everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here, taking a look at the race right before the Kentucky Derby on Saturday at Churchill Downs. Race 11 is the Grade 1 Old Forester Turf Classic, going 9 furlongs on the turf for the older runners. This race and all of our Kentucky Derby coverage this week is presented by FanDuel. And speaking of our friends at FanDuel, they've got a promotion going on for new customers. You can get a no-sweat first bet of all the way up to $500. If you open a new account, make your first bet up to $500. If it wins, that's great for you. You made a score. But if not, you get that money that you bet right back into your account to keep playing. So find out more about that at the FanDuel website or at the app. Also, these are some really interesting cards to go through on Oaks Friday and Derby Saturday at Churchill Downs. So you'll want to start your handicapping early and pick up one of these DRF past performance packages. In doing so, you can save up to 39% of the value of everything you get in one of these packages. It's not just the PPs. You also get the betting strategies for Oaks Friday and Derby Saturday. I'll be writing those with Marcus Hirsch, giving out full picks for the entire cards, wagers, in-depth analysis. So check that out. Also, the player's guide, clock reports from Mike Welsh and his team, so you can see how these horses are doing coming into these races ahead of Oaks and Derby weekend. Find out more about these packages at shop.drf.com. Mike, let's take a look at this field for the Old Forester Bourbon Turf Classic. 12 runners signed on for this race, though do note our colleague Marcus Hirsch did report that the number 11 Brilliant Birdie, who is cross-entered in the opening verse stakes earlier in the week, is likely to run there as long as that race stays on the turf. And there is a little bit of rain predicted throughout the week at Churchill Downs. Some variable thunderstorms, I think, primarily on Wednesday, Thursday. So hopefully we stay on the turf and everything's going to be fine. I mean, this race will definitely stay on the turf, but hopefully it is firm for when these horses do compete over it. And Mike, it's a really interesting race. We've got several runners from the Chad Brown stable. No clear horse to beat. You could see that from the morning line.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the way that the morning line is laid out is exactly how the race handicapped, in my opinion. I mean, it was really, really hard to sort of compare and contrast these horses. They're all coming in from different directions. I just feel like a lot of different horses can win, David. And to be honest with you, there are so many stacked races on this card that you have to spend time going through. I feel like I spent way too much time looking at this one.
Yeah, you can make cases for a lot of horses in this race. At the end of the day, it might come down to who works out the best trip. And to get a sense of how these trips could play out, let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this Turf Classic. And again, Mike, I found this to be a little tough to read. I will say one comment I'll make about this pace projector is I would imagine the number 5, I'd Rather Be Blessed, is going to be more forward than where he's shown here. For those that are not familiar with the Timeform US pace projector, it's basically telling you how fast these horses have run in their prior races coming in here, kind of making speed figures for the fractional paces these horses have run in their prior races, not so much taking the running styles into account, but jockey intention does matter a lot in these turf routes. And you'd imagine Ben Curtis is going to be a little aggressive with the number 5, I'd Rather Be Blessed.
Yeah, particularly just based on, I guess the win 2 starts back is notable, where he defeated several of these horses right on the front end at Fairgrounds. Yeah, I thought he would go forward too. Other than that, this pace is really murky. I mean, the horse that they have out there on the front, the 9, he's not, I don't know if he's, confirmed to run here or not. He's also cross-entered into another race. And I guess he could go to the lead if he runs here.
He is cross-entered, and Marcus did also report Mercante's running in this spot, so we will definitely talk about him as if he's running in this race. And let's start by going through this field from the rail out with the number 1, Integration. And Mike, this is a frustrating horse, not just for horse players. He's got to be a frustrating horse for the connections as well, because you know that there's a ton of raw ability here. And he looked like the next American turf star when he won the first 3 races of his career back in 2023. And it just hasn't quite come to fruition for him. I think he's still searching for that first ever Grade 1 victory. And he ran to this race last year, ran fine behind what might have been a tougher field than this, and he's continued to pick up pieces in some of these top races. I'm just always left a little cold watching his replays.
Yeah, me too, man. I'm trying to hang on here as long as I can with this horse because I'm a big fan of his good race is really, really good. And when he gets a good trip and he comes running through the stretch, he can be very, very visually impressive. He's had some trips along the way too. I feel like we're not supposed to be too down on him for the Maker's Mark, the most recent start, where he just had no chance with Carl Spackler, even though I still thought he had a chance, he would have had a chance to make it close, but he just couldn't do it. I don't know. I like him. I think he can win this race. If he's around that 4-1 morning line, I feel like that's probably fair against this field, but I don't think I can bet this horse anymore, David. I've tried him too many times.
Yeah, and I say I was left cold by his replays. I really was referring to the last race because watching it unfold, it just never looked like he was going to get anywhere near Carl Spackler. He came under a ride early and just didn't have the finish that you were accustomed to seeing from him early in his career. The number 2 is Gold Phoenix, and Mike, you have to have a lot of respect for this hard-knocking 7-year-old. He is effective over a variety of distances. They've tried the Breeders' Cup Turf with him in each of the last 3 years, and the last couple of seasons, he's finished 4th at gigantic prices both times. He was actually the top American finisher in the Breeders' Cup Turf this past season in November of 2024, and he ran a really nice race that day. He covered ground, was 3 wide around the far turn, and still stayed on to be in the superfecta there. He came back for his 7-year-old debut last time off the layoff, and wasn't exactly the ideal trip, and it's not the first time this horse has not gotten an ideal trip from his prior jockey. So, Mike, I'm kind of intrigued by this switch to Umberto Rispoli, who's looking to get a Grade 1 victory before piloting journalism in the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, I like that. I like the rider switch too, and it's at least worth noting that this horse. He seems like when you go back and watch most of his races anyway, they like to put this horse right in behind and get him covered up, and so that's going to lead to you getting stopped in the stretch sometimes. I guess, and it happened to him last time. To me, the most interesting thing about him, first of all, he's a really, really good horse. And I kind of feel like, some of his races that he ran last year are maybe as good as this horse has ever looked to me. Like, it feels like even though he was 6 years old, now he's 7. I mean, I think he's as good as ever. And, listen, if you're concerned about distance, and it's something to be concerned about as he cuts back to 9 here, he won the Eddie Reed 2 years ago. He won the Grade 1 Kilroe Mile at a mile 2 years ago. So he can go short. They ran him in the Eddie Reed last year too. And don't take that running line at face value. He had a no chance trip in there. The 9 furlongs is okay for this horse.
Completely agree that the distance is just fine for the number 2 Gold Phoenix. We'll see if the distance is going to be okay for the number 3 Highway Robber, who has really improved over his past several starts in the U.S. as the distances have gotten longer. And he ran the best race that we had seen from him yet in the Sycamore when he just barely got the job done over a Bold Act, a Godolphin Charlie Appleby runner who had done some nice things in the U.S. prior to that. And that was a strong field he was beating that day, Mike. The owners got this idea in their heads that once he didn't qualify for the Breeders' Cup Turf, that the way to sort of harden this horse to qualify for a race like the Breeders' Cup next year was to take on tough competition all over the world. So they switched him into the Charlie Hills barn to target a campaign in Dubai. It clearly didn't work out in the one start he made over there. So now he's back with Brian Lynch, but cutting all the way back to 9 furlongs.
Yeah, I don't necessarily love that about him. I don't love that they shipped him over there either, and now he has to come back. Listen, this horse, he got really good last year as a 4-year-old. He just ran one good race after another. If I was going to, sort of nitpick him, like you, I'm a little concerned, I think, about him cutting back, going 9 furlongs here. Maybe he's better going longer. Also, the Sycamore last time, it was a good field. And this horse came running. Boy, did they go fast in that race. I mean, he just sat back. They were flying on the lead in there. And, he came and got the job done.
Up next is the number 4 redistricting, and he is coming out of the Muniz Memorial Classic, and that's an important race to discuss as we go through this Old Forester Bourbon Turf Classic, because I think 6 runners from the Muniz are back in this race. So it's a real exercise for those that like to analyze those trips these horses got. And Mike, I would say redistricting didn't get the worst trip in that race, but also didn't get the best trip, because he is a horse that likes to be held up behind runners and just unleash that one big late burst in the stretch. We saw that from him in the Seabiscuit 2 back at Del Mar, where he almost got the job done, closing from last in a 12-horse field. And he just came off cover a little bit early in the Muniz last time around the far turn. It just seemed like his late run wasn't really there when Flavien Prat called upon him. This horse does have talent. He's just got to work out the right trip for him in this race.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think at this stage of the game with him, you got to stop taking short prices on him because he does. I kind of needs things to go, almost perfectly for him. I don't want to say perfectly because he's overcome some adversity too, but almost perfectly for him to win. But he just feels like he has so much talent to me, David. And I said that going back to his right from his debut, where he was just ultra impressive winning that day. And he's had another really impressive allowance win since then. He's had a couple of brutal trips. The Knickerbocker was a brutal trip for this horse, and he was best that day. He's talented. I think he's as talented as anybody in this field. He needs the right trip.
The number 5, I'd Rather Be Blessed, was the winner of that Muniz Memorial Classic, the common race that half of this field is coming out of. And he won that race at 86-1. And Mike, anytime a horse wins at a huge price like that, you always want to go back and try to redboard it or see how you could come up with the horse and maybe learn for future races that come up that are similar to that. And going back to handicap that Muniz again, I mean, you could go through that field. There were 12 runners in there. There was very little speed signed on. And Ben Curtis obviously knew that. He put this horse right on the front end, back down the pace. It turned into a sprint to the finish, and he was able to kick as well as everybody else to hold them all off in the late stages. They tried to stretch him out to 1.5 miles last time in the Elkhorn at Keeneland. Just didn't really want to go that far against what was another tough field. But now they're coming back in 2 weeks, trying to wire in an even tougher field. It just feels like lightning's going to have to strike twice for this horse.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I do. We already looked at the pace projector, and I guess you could handicap this race and say, you know what, he's going to make the lead again, and he's already made these horses pay once. Maybe he'll do it again. I didn't really look at the race that way. If it happens, it happens, but I'm going to bet somebody else.
The number 6, Taking Candy, feels like one of the more progressive options in this field because he started off his career looking like one with talent, had some layoffs to deal with that sort of stalled his momentum for a little bit, but he's really put forth some nice efforts over the past 3 races or so with some time in between each of them. And last time he won the Grade 3 Fairgrounds back in mid-February. Now, I think that was a weaker field than the one that was assembled a month later at Fairgrounds in the Muniz, but this horse still won pretty well. It continues to make these incremental improvements. And I think the best thing you can say about him, Mike, is that he's got the kind of tactical speed that usually ensures he works out a good trip.
Yeah, that's what I liked most about him too. He's so tactical that he will get the right trip. That's what happened in that Fairgrounds last time. They sat right up close to a very moderate pace that day. And he had enough to overtake that field late. And he was, clearly best that day. This is a tougher race than that one. I still, go back to that Baruch last summer at Saratoga where, he ran fine that day. But to me, he was no match for Running B, who's also back in this field. I think he can win, but I don't like him that much.
Mike, I'm curious to get your take on the number 7 Running B, because I've always thought of him as more of a grade 2, grade 3 level horse. Chad Brown never seemed that interested in pushing him into the tougher races. I know he tried the grade 1 turf mile at Keeneland at the end of last year. He ran okay, but didn't really look like a true grade 1 animal that day. And he's won his 2 races since then. And I guess that gives them the confidence now to try his top level turf race. And his speed figures say he fits with this field. I just don't know if I'm fully convinced that he's quite best at this level.
Yeah, I think we look at him the same exact way. It really bothers me. First of all, I will say this. I think he looks really good winning this race. This is his first start of the year down at Tampa. This is a really good performance. But I still, along the lines of your thinking, David, that he's not like truly grade 1. I know that Artie Schiller got a 98. I can't shake my feelings after that race is over, where he's life and death to put away Big Everest.
Yeah, and the problem for me is watching that replay, he got a supersonic pace to close into and showed the versatility to rally from further back, which is a feather in his cap, but he still just barely got by Northern Invader, who came back and was trounced by Carl Spackler in a grade 1 at Keeneland, and also was beaten by Integration, we already talked about. The number 8 is Cameo Performance. He's another horse coming out of that Muniz Memorial at Fairgrounds, and he was kind of the surprise in addition to I'd Rather Be Blessed that got into the trifecta that day, Mike, because he had never run a speed figure that suggested that he really fit with that group, but he had shown some talent along the way. I know he was a horse that you actually had quite a bit of affinity for going into that Muniz, believing he had that potential, and he showed it in his performance. The one horse that really made up a lot of ground into that slow pace as they came home quickly. I guess we just have to reconcile whether or not we think that that's who he is now, and if he can put those races back to back.
Yeah, I feel like at least I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to do it again. I liked this horse quite a bit last year as a 3-year, and I know he didn't run in the toughest races. Really, the Kentucky Downs race is the one where he didn't run well at all. But I don't care about the Kentucky Downs races, especially if a horse runs really poorly there. If you look at the short comment there, you might think he had a tough trip, but he didn't. He actually had a perfectly fine trip in there, and he just wasn't good enough. But I thought he ran really well last time. I really liked the progression he was making as a 3-year-old, and I won't be surprised if he moves forward again.
The number 9, Mercante, is coming off one of the fastest Beyer speed figures anybody's earned in this race when he got a 101 winning the Kentucky Cup Classic over the synthetic course at Turfway Park. And he's really come to hand recently racing over the synthetic for a new barn after switching trainers away from Bill Mott during a long layoff between 2023 and 2024, Mike. I get that he ran really well last time in the Kentucky Cup Classic. I just have trouble believing that performance is going to translate to this turf race here, even though he's handled turf in the past. And also, I have trouble believing that he was only 13-1 last time, because even going back to look at that field, he looked totally overmatched, and I'm just not sure where that performance came from.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know who this trainer is, but he's obviously, been winning races with only, I've looked him up. I think he only has 2 horses, but yeah, with all those wins, but they're both winning a lot of races. The other one's a really low level claimer. This horse, listen, he ran really well last time. If he transfers it, I guess this is the right kind of field, perhaps, especially if he makes the lead, to make a little hay at a price. I remember this horse. I know it's only 3 turf races for Mott, but I remember those races, and I remember not really liking this horse that much.
Mike, I wish the number 10 Spirit of St. Louis had drawn a better post position in here, because he is sort of the one horse that I feel like really didn't get a great trip last time in the Muniz Memorial. He was just stuck outside every step of the way, 3 wide on the first turn, had to swing 4 wide with no cover on the second turn, and it just kind of took away from his late run a little bit. He actually even finished better than his stablemate redistricting that day, despite getting a wider trip. This is a horse who's gotten some wide trips before. That was also the case when he tried Grade 1 company in the turf mile last fall at Keeneland. So when he hasn't hit the board, he's had excuses, and every other time he just consistently is in the exacta. He runs the strong race after strong race. We'll take a look at his victory 2 back in the Pegasus World Cup Turf, where he got a pretty good trip, but he still delivered against a really strong field.
Yeah, this is a Grade 1 win going this 9 furlong distance too. He runs really well, and we're going to also see in this replay Integration, who's right in front of him. To me, this is another one of the reasons that makes me, really reluctant to take Integration at a short price. He runs fine in here, but I still it's kind of the race. I feel like he's kind of got to win if you want me to keep following you. I don't know what to do with Spirit of St. Louis, David. To me, he's one of the horses. I just ultimately decided, the longer I looked at it, I'm just not using him in here. I know that he can win. I think he is going to be one of the favorites in this race. And I'm not sure if I can articulate it in the time that we have here. I just don't really believe in him in races like this. Maybe I'm going to make him prove me wrong again.
The number 11 is Brilliant Birdie. And full disclosure, I probably would have had this horse in my picks if he was running here, but our colleague Marcus Hirsch reports that he's probably running in that opening verse instead. He's a horse that was compromised by the slow pace in the Muniz last time. Mike, let's move right on to the number 12, Gigante, and another horse coming out of the Muniz. He's the other horse, aside from the winner, I'd rather be blessed, who I thought just got a perfect trip. He was following that horse along the inside, stalking that slow pace every step of the way. Yeah, it got a little tight as he was trying to come up the rail late, but I didn't feel like he had that much of an excuse. And now he's drawn all the way outside in post 12.
Yeah, you can't get that trip now. And the other thing is, I don't think he wants to go 9 furlongs, really. I mean, he got it decently last time because he just got that perfect trip in there. I will say, he generally will show up and run his race. I thought he got an unbelievably bad ride 2 starts back in the fairgrounds when he was behind Taking Candy. I don't know what they were thinking, taking this horse back early in that race as they walked in front of him. And they gave him a much better ride last time. I don't know what kind of trip he can get in here, David. I love this horse. I think he's really good, but I don't like him in races like this, going this distance. I think it's too much for him.
Well, before we get to our picks, let's remind everybody that this video is presented by FanDuel, and FanDuel's got that promotion going on this week for new customers. You can get that no sweat first bet of up to $500. Make your first bet of up to $500 in value. If it wins, great, you made a score. But if not, you get that money right back into your account, and you can keep playing using that. Find out more at FanDuel on the app or at the website. Well, Mike, let's move on to our top picks for this Old Forester Bourbon Turf Classic. And we were kind of talking a little bit beforehand in a race that looks so wide open. Kind of funny that we wound up with the same exacta here, just in reverse order.
Yeah, we almost had it in the same order because I took a long look at putting Gold Phoenix on top too. I really respect him. I want to use him. I don't know if the 10-1 is realistic on redistricting as far as the morning line goes. We'll see where the price settles. I'm giving him one more chance. And I think his good race makes him really tough. He's 2 for 2 with Irad. Irad's back on board. I'm just going to put this horse right over behind horses and let him try to explode late.
I think we saw this race very similarly. I also took a long look at redistricting for all the reasons you mentioned. I just really respect the resume of Gold Phoenix, his versatility. I think some people might underrate him at this distance, and it's just fine for him, as we both discussed earlier. So 2-4-10-1 for me and 4-2-8-1 for Mike in race 11 at Churchill Downs on Saturday, the Turf Classic. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.